It's so much fun to welcome back Dana Hotle, who is the Executive Director of Chamber Project St. Louis. Welcome, Dana.
Thank you, Kathy. It's always a pleasure.
For me too. You have some great stuff coming up, particularly Wednesday, April 19th. You're going to be doing Retold at the Sheldon. So tell us all about this.
Well, we're really excited to come back to the Sheldon as part of their classical series this year. And this is a really beautiful program. There's just tons of gorgeous music on this program. The narrative is this idea of how history is told, and we're looking at American history. So we're playing music both from European composers, Haydn and Dvorak, and some great American composers, and just kind of looking at the connections between them and the history and who tells history and what kind of impact does that have, and just kind of taking a look at that.
Sounds fascinating. I see that you have both female and male composers, which is always something that's kind of a subtext with your programming anyhow. How did you come up with the program, and tell us about the program?
We always have a female composer on every concert we do. We've done that for many, many years. And we also always have a person of color on every concert that we do. We've been doing it for a long time. And we're also really proud of the fact that 50% of the music we play is by living composers. And we're a traditional ensemble. We play with traditional techniques. We're not an avant garde, I'm having my air quotes, new music, like that extended technique, which is great. I mean, we love that stuff. That's not what our ensemble does. We leave that to the people who are experts in that type of music. And we very much play music that's written in traditional styles. 50% of our music is by living composers and by women and by people who've historically been excluded from the stage. That's a huge part of what we do in Chamber Project. And we weave it together with Haydn and Dvorak and Mozart and Beethoven and Brahms, and creating connections from the past to today. And that's what this program is really about at the Sheldon, is creating these connections to the music of the past through the music of today, linking them together. And our audience always really enjoys that we are presenting music they may not hear elsewhere. They may not know about the composers and find someone they really, really like. I think they enjoy that juxtaposition between Haydn and William Grant Still. How is there a connection between great African American composer William Grant Still and Franz Joseph Haydn? So how do we have this connection? So this program came together. I actually think Cindy McTee's piece, Shenandoah, which is on the program. She's a St. Louis-based composer. She's fantastic. We've played her music before. St. Louis audiences might be familiar with her already. Her setting of this old folk song, Shenandoah, was one of the catalyst pieces for this. So there's not like one definitive, like, where did this song come from and what does it mean? And so looking back on that and kind of using that as a jumping off point of examining history and who tells that story, and how there's always different interpretations, there's always different narratives on history. And we bring Haydn in as a composer of the Enlightenment. And of course, America, our Constitution was built on principles of the Enlightenment. And yet, how is that being interpreted today is quite different. The Enlightenment was kind of a distancing from organized religion. And how is that influencing politics today? And we're not going to like have a huge lecture on this in our, we're going to enjoy the music and tell some stories and talk about the Enlightenment a little bit. But it is kind of our internal launching point, is making these connections. Of course, Dvorak came to America. That's a very storied history. And how did that influence him? And what does that mean? But also looking at this way in classical music, we've been historically really focused on this very narrow group of composers as being like the best, or the ones who did harmony right, or it's been perpetuated in music schools of we only study these very specific people, and therefore they're put up on these pedestals. Well, let's take a little look at that. Like, who's missing? Who was left out? Who else could we learn from? Can we just broaden our awareness a little bit and be more inclusive in who we consider the best, the greatest, who we're studying, who we're learning from as musicians? We end up performing who we learn, right? It just becomes this echo chamber in the music industry sometimes of like, well, I studied only these composers. They're the only ones I know. So when I walk on stage and I choose the music I play, that's probably who I'm going to end up choosing, unless you make this effort to say, what else is out there? Because there's so much great stuff out there. So that's kind of the launching point there. We also have on this program, oh, of course, we're premiering a piece. This is very exciting for us because this is a huge piece of what we do is play brand new compositions. This is a piece commissioned by this Sheldon. It's a part of a partnership they've had for a long time by a young composer named Isabel Borchardt. Like, she'll be there. She'll correct me, I'm sure. Yeah, Borchardt, she's a composition student at Mizzou. And the Sheldon has a relationship there where they bring these new works to the Sheldon by students in that program. It's a great fit for us. We, of course, have a commissioning project and have actually another world premiere in our June concert that we commissioned. So it's fun to play a commission. We're really excited about her piece and bringing that to the program. And anytime you're programming music by a living composer, you're creating history in a way, you're marking a time and a place of this person wrote this music in this culture. This was the vibe. This was the energy of this moment for her. And here's this piece of music.
Every piece really has that element,
Yeah.
but it's really fun to be able, especially since she's going to be there that night. Are you going to have her maybe speak about the piece before you play it?
I hope that she'll speak. We would love to invite her to the stage to speak. Yeah,
Like,
we usually do. One of the great things we do is we have this commissioning project, and we're very focused on commissioning local composers to have them come up and speak to the audience, but that then they're also from St. Louis or from the region. It just creates this connection, and it creates a connection between the audience and the music. It's just awesome. I mean, until you've experienced it, I don't think you can quite understand how neat it is to just go hear this piece of music, meet the person who wrote it, and know that like you're going to bump into them in the grocery store. Like that we're really all connected through the music that way. And I think that's really neat. So it's a really fun program, and I think you really nailed it. I mean, one of the things I personally, as a musician, love is I love playing music and knowing that like hundreds of years ago, somebody else played this,
mm,
and somebody else was listening to this exact thing, but live, that it's not a recording, right? That it's because that's like frozen in time, a little bit of recording, that it's still living, that it's still coming to life and connecting people for hundreds of years. Like, I just love that
yeah.
about
Isn't that
music.
great?
Yeah.
And I think too, you have cultivated over the last 15 years of Chamber Project St. Louis. You've cultivated your audience in a sense. They know to expect a little bit of the unexpected and have these experiences. And I think that's fabulous.
Thank you. And they've grown to trust us that, we are going to put composers and music on this concert you've not heard of. You've maybe not heard this type of music before, and hopefully you'll like it. Usually they do. You're not going to like every piece of music you hear at a concert. Like it's just not going to happen. And that's actually for me as an audience goer. I like going to concerts and sometimes hearing something, oh, I don't really like that.
Yeah, but it's okay.
That's okay because I'm going to like the next thing.
Right.
And sometimes if I really don't like something, I think, well, that was really an effective piece of music because it really made me angry or like whatever. It's not my thing, but at least I know, and that can be an equally as interesting experience, right? Like I'm not always looking for something to be completely pleasurable, I guess. Like there's something intellectually interesting to me about like, I didn't really like that. Why didn't I like it? What was it about it that didn't fit my taste? And it's also just interesting sometimes to hear a really different voice that you haven't heard that before. So, but our audience, I think, has grown to trust us and they enjoy that mix. Musicians really like it too.
I'm certain the musicians do because it's something new and fresh. I think that's one of the reasons why Chamber Project St. Louis has been so successful is because you do keep it percolating, new stuff, and yet mixed with the old
And
is
we
really,
get so excited about new composers to us,
yeah,
right? Like we get energized. Oh, wow, we're playing this person and they just got nominated for a Grammy, we can see them on TV or Instagram or like that. We get really excited about the people we find.
yeah,
And that comes across in the program, right? Like the musicians are like, oh, this is cool. We're excited to play this person. And we're excited to play a great traditional piece by Dvorak, the energy there. So it's not like, oh, we're going to show up and play the same thing we've played, that it's fun to have them both. Yeah.
Well, let's give the details on this. Retold is going to be at the Sheldon Concert Hall. And is this partnered with the Sheldon, by the way?
This is part of their classical series this year. Yes. Yeah. Season tickets. This is part of it.
Retold is going to be at the Sheldon Concert Hall Wednesday, April 19th at 8 p.m. At 7 p.m., the art gallery and the bar open, whichever happens to be your preference, or perhaps both. And then at 8 o'clock, the concert starts in the concert hall itself. And tickets are available. Simply go to Chamber Project website because the links are all there. chamberprojectstl.org. Is there anything I'm leaving out, Dana?
Nope, that sounds great. We're always excited to be here. Thank you. It's always great to talk to you.
Always great talking with you too. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.